everybody, Jeff Simon here from SocialFlight with another cool building stage on our Titan T-51D Mustang. And I'm here with Lithra. How are you doing, Lithra?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Excellent. And so this is really special. For winter break, we have Lithra staying with us. He is a mechanical engineering student. You're a sophomore, right?
Sophomore, yep.
Sophomore mechanical engineering student at University of Massachusetts, Amherst. And you're going to spend winter break here working on the Mustang with us. Jake's here, Ben's here, so it's a whole gang.
Oh yeah.
What do you ready to enjoy the staying in from the snow and working on a Mustang?
Yeah, dude, I'm super excited to get started. Can't wait to learn more about planes.
Yeah.
I'm usually more into cars, but
you'll just come with.
It's pretty much the same, I guess. But
exactly. We'll figure it out like one step at a time, and there's a lot of cool things that we have to figure out. And that starts today with your drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
So today we're going to work. We've previously installed the radiator and also the oil cooler, but getting the lines out of those is a little bit challenging. So we're going to figure that out today, and part of this is our concept with our Mustang build of keeping all of our fluid lines outside of the cockpit of the aircraft. So if there's ever a leak or something like that, we don't have to worry about steam from the coolant or leaking hot oil or anything like that inside. But that means we've got to figure out how to do it. It's going to start with Lithra working on the flap driver, which goes across the back. So let's take a look at that. So the way that the flap system works is the motor turns this rod, which goes across. You can see this is like a square tube with fittings at the end, and that is what actually drives the flaps up and down. This part up here attaches to the flap motor, and the two bottom flanges actually control the flaps. Well, the reason that matters is because that's going right above where the radiator is. So Lithra's going to get that all mounted into place and set up, and then figure out how to take this hose and tell us about the different options that you've got with these fittings. I'll hold the hose.
So we've got a bunch of different angles on the fittings for the AN fittings. We're planning on using mainly the 90 degree, the 45 degree, and then the over 90 degree.
Right.
It depends on where we're routing it. So we're planning to route two lines on both sides of the airplane.
Yep.
And since we have the oil cooler in the back, we have to figure out the routing of the oil cooler lines, which is the trickiest part, I guess. And
in big lines, they're these stainless braided lines. This is the smallest one. It's an AN10 fitting line for the oil cooler. And
they're not flexible. it's super stiff. So
yeah, and then AN16 for the coolant. Yep. So we'll take a look at how I'll let you get to work playing with this, figuring it all out. What's your first step with this driver? How does this go in?
So since from factory the tolerances were a bit too tight on these, and since we have to fit it up underneath the plane to get the correct distance between the two bushings on both sides, I had to file it down just to make it easier for me to go underneath and mark the perimeter.
So you basically make it smaller first and then go in
to go out
and then extend it.
Yep, and we have to drill all the holes and put new fittings in.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I just filed down sides. And
all right.
Yeah.
I'll get out of the way. I'll let you get to work, and we'll get the flap driver put in and see if we can get these lines routed.
Yep.
All right.
That's it.
Back to work. All right. In order for us to figure out where these lines are going to be able to go and how we're going to get them out from inside where the radiator is and the oil cooler is, we're going to start by mounting these fairings, temporarily just clamping them in place, and then we can figure out where we can make access cuts into like the fuselage of the belly skin. So let's get these mounted up, see where we can go from there, and then get some holes cut. So we'll start from the back because we know roughly where the flap ends. These are pretty rough, but rough guesses, but it's at least enough that we can make some smart decisions about estimating where we really have a lot of room. And let's see, maybe put this over here. Something like that. Oops. Let's try. Good. That'll be good enough.
Yep.
That looks like it's roughly in the right place. Okay. I'll go to the other side. I'll set the camera, and Luther's going to start cutting access for the flaps tube.
So after I put the bushings in, I remarked it, and as you can see, the outline here is the mark with the bushings in, and then this inside mark is the mark I drew without the bushings. So it was good that we put the bushings in to see where exactly the holes will line up. So I'm going to cut this now.
All right, Luther, nice job. So now it's time to actually drill the holes and then be able to bolt up, and you can go and mount the flap driver arm. To do this, I just want to show you a couple things about any time that we are mounting bolts and drilling holes in order to make that happen. We want to start with a smaller drill, and then we want to ream it out to our final size, and we're using AN3 bolts in this case. That's basically 3/16, and so what we're going to do is I have one step down of a drill. We're going to start with a pilot hole, so I want you to go through these. Do your best to use the center punch to mark the exact center of that, and then you can start with the air drill of what's actually in there, move up to the next one, and then the final reamer. And during all of this, we're going to use cutting fluid, and when you go to the reamer, you go very slowly.
Yep.
So give it a shot. It's all on you.
Let's do it. So we just completed drilling out all the holes and reaming them to perfect size, and I'm just going to test fit it now, see if our holes line up on both sides.
Let's talk hoses for a minute. Now, for our oil cooler as well as for our coolant lines going to the radiator, we're using this style of stainless steel braided rubber hose. And the good part is that we have this routed in such a way that when we have to replace it, it's in the wing root, it's not that hard to do, so we can monitor it and of course keep fluids out of the cockpit. Now, working with this is a little bit of a challenge. You need to have certain tools to do it. The first thing that's so important is if you're going to be cutting it, you need to wrap the end of it in tape. You can generally do that in painter's tape. It does quite a good job to do a couple wraps in the painter's tape, and that helps you get the end ready for finishing. Then you have two choices. You can use one of these really big hose cutters made specifically for that. That'll slice right through the braid and the hose inside, or you can take it to like a fiber wheel cutter online like a Dremel or something else that'll smoothly go through it. But the key is to cut through the painter's tape, because you don't want to get a bunch of fraying of that stainless steel braided mesh on the outside, because ultimately you need to fit it into this two-part fitting system. So the way that fittings work for this particular type of hose is it's this two-part, as you can see. The first thing you have is this barrel right here, or ferrule, and it's a bit of a ramp on the inside, and you need to be able to get it over the braid. And so that's where that painter's tape comes in, is the ability to cut it and then be able to twist it over. Now what's nice is on the inside of this are basically counterclockwise threads, so that if you turn left counterclockwise, it will help work its way onto the actual hose on the outside. Now once that's in place, you then attach this next piece. Now you have to lubricate it with oil, like a 30 weight oil is what they recommend. So you take some oil, you put it on this, and it's got this kind of like necked down area, as you can see right here, that makes it easier to get it first through and centered in the rubber hose. You want to be careful that you're not cutting the rubber hose in any way and taking pieces that will eventually clog your system, cause problems for any valves or anything else, or pumps, etc. So you get that seated in there. And then once you start threading it, you make sure that you're using that 30 weight oil and you thread it on. Now, each of these hose systems and fittings has a different specs for how to do it, but one of the important things is almost all of them make sure that you don't thread it all the way down so that they're actually meeting. You do need to use feeler gauges to get to a specific setting where it's actually, they know it's seated just the right distance, and that's actually in this. That then allows this fitting, in this case, can actually rotate, which is important when you're trying to do something in such a tight space as we are here. And then if you want to remove the hose or do anything like that, you're going to need, in many cases, to rotate that fitting. So we'll get to work and get all of this built up, but just wanted to give you a quick primer on how to work with oil and coolant hoses. All right, Lithra, so what do you think about the first stage of building on our Titan T-51 Mustang that you've been involved in?
Yeah, I think it's great. It's just it's a lot of thinking and trying new things and going back to it, making it different, and then working with these stubborn lines is funny, but it's all fun. Yeah.
It's like three-dimensional chess. You have to figure out how you're going to do it, because of course our goal, all the fluid lines staying outside of the cockpit, that's really a fundamental part of what we're trying to accomplish. And you figured it out. You figured out how to kind of get it out of the radiator and then also out of the oil cooler, get it all forward around that flap driver. That's really important. It's spaced right now just because the 8L clamps and the clecos that are holding it up, but ultimately these will be really tight. And then they'll go underneath the fairing and move forward. So for our next video, what we're going to do is we're going to work on the firewall. We're going to bring this all the way forward, work on the heater core, the firewall, the manifolds, and you'll get to see how it all comes together. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm excited. We keep moving ahead with the build really fast now. And pretty soon we'll be wrapping up a lot of things that'll be looking a lot more like a Mustang in no time. Absolutely. Well, for SocialFlight, I'm Jeff Simon. This is Lithra, and be sure to check out SocialFlight.com and the free SocialFlight apps for Apple and Android devices. We have tens of thousands of aviation events and destinations, so many cool things going on there, as well as our Fly to Win challenge, where you can win from prizes. It's just so great. Be sure to check it all out and join the SocialFlight community. Until next time, I wish you all blue skies.